Good evening, everyone. I'm Natasha and I'm part of the Resvera team, and we are here with Ami Shroff. For those of you who don't know who Ami Shroff is, she is a renowned flair bartender, mixologist, and fire juggler, and she's performed in over 20 destinations across the country and internationally. And she's also among the first two women flair bartenders of India, and she started her career in 2003, and she's here with us today, and she'll be showing us some frisky drinks with Resvera. So, Ami, off to you.
Thank you so much, Natasha. Thank you for that sweet introduction. It's going to be one awesome session. It's cocktail time, and we're going to be playing around with these delicious bottles of Resvera that I've got and I've been experimenting with over the last some days. It's perfect for like a house party as well as any professional bar to try out. Great for Diwali cocktails. Also, it's just around the corner, or any other celebration. It doesn't have to be specific to an occasion. I'm going to play around with a twist. Not really a sangria, but inspired from the sangria. But instead of fruity notes that we give to the sangria usually, here I'm going to play with some flowers, and that's going to be hibiscus that I'm playing around with. I think that tartness of hibiscus, the flower, it comes so beautifully and it goes so well with the jamun wine. Slightly tart flavors as well. These berry notes that come through complement the hibiscus really well. So we're going to try a twist on that. And before we get to the hibiscus sangria, if you call it, we're going to try our own version of the New York Sour, which is, I'm calling it the new Bombay Sour. And we're going to be playing around with the spiced rum instead of whiskey. And we're going to mix that up with some lime and a sweetener of choice. I'm going to be going with some honey instead of sugar because I just find honey has so much flavor. And there are so many other sweeteners that one can try and experiment with, play around with cocktails of their choice. Just change the sweetener from sugar to maybe a honey or a date syrup or a jaggery syrup. And you have this whole other cocktail, completely different tasting, but very similar flavor notes. So we're going to jump right into the cocktail mixing, and I'm going to take you through it and explain what I'm doing as I'm doing it. If there are any questions that pop to your mind, please go ahead and ask me right away, and I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you once again for having me. My name is Ami Shroff. I'm a professional flair bartender and juggler as well. I'm going to show you some of those tricks after also. And let's get mixing. For now, I'm going to take my Boston shaker. It's a 2-piece shaker. You can use any kind of shaker. Or if you don't have a shaker at home, try with any airtight jar that keeps all the liquid, the ice cubes inside. Fill up a lot of ice because that's one thing, one important ingredient that we require for cocktails very often. Unless you're going with warm drinks or a different style of cocktails, ice is a very key factor, a very key ingredient in your cocktails. And we're going to fill up our shakers with ice after we add all the ingredients so that there's less dilution and the ice is not just sitting around and melting while I'm explaining it to you. So let's jump into it, and we're going to take a shot, about 45 to 60 ml, depending on how strong you want your cocktail to be. A shot of dark rum, and this one is spiced rum. So if you like spices and you like that flavor of spice coming through, I think it goes really well with the Resvera as well. Go for it, go for spiced rum. Otherwise, any rum works, white rum or dark rum. And in fact, you can even experiment with other alcohol or spirits of choice. I'm gonna add about 15 ml of lime juice that we have here freshly squeezed. So just drop that in also into the shaker. All right, 15 ml of lime juice, and we're gonna put about 10 to 15 ml of honey in there. Now, you want to dilute the honey and mix it up before we add the ice, because honey crystallizes if we just add the ice directly. So you can dilute it prior with the juice of choice or just some water, or just drop it in directly and stir it up before we get our ice cubes in there. Right, so I put about 3 or 2.5 bar spoons of honey. And if you like it sweeter, go for about 3 bar spoons of honey. That's about 15 ml. 5 ml per bar spoon approximately, similar to a teaspoon also if you may. All right, so I've stirred up all the honey. I've seen that it's melted in there, it's diluted. You can just take a drop on the back of my hand to taste the cocktail. before I add any other ingredients, before I add the ice cubes, it's perfectly balanced. Do I want it sweeter? Do I want it more tangy? Just balance it according to your taste buds and go right in and add the ice cubes. So if you see that the ice cubes are above the line of the liquid. So if your line of the liquid is somewhere here, add the ice cubes a little above it, like 2 inches above. All right, so the more the ice, the lesser the dilution. And you don't want just a few cubes of ice completely melting in there, not chilling your drink well enough. So you want to shake it with a lot of ice. We shut our shaker. So it's just a mix of alcohol of your choice, a spirit of your choice, a sweetener and a sour. And we're going to shake that up, mix it up really well in the shaker, and pour it out into a coupe glass where we're going to add a nice block of ice. That's optional. You don't have to go with that. I like ice personally a lot, so I like my drinks really cold, and I'm going to add a block of ice in there. And we're going to float it with some jamun wine right at the end. Gives a nice difference in color and looks really pretty as well. That becomes the garnish of your cocktail. All right, so let's go ahead and shake it up. All right, pop your shaker. And strain it with the glass itself, holding both the glasses, or since I have a Haton strainer with me, I'm going to put that on top so it keeps all the ice cubes out, and strain it right into your cocktail glass. We add a block of ice into your glass. I'm just going to float some of the Resvera jamun wine on top. You could even float it with the back of the bar spoon, but if you just pour it, it should just stay on the top. So the bar spoon is not really required. And there you have it, the new Bombay Sour with a twist of rum instead of whiskey and some jamun wine, a nice tart flavor. You can give it a little stir in the end, just to blend in all the flavors together. But you really get the aroma of the red wine. The jamun wine comes through right in the sip, right at the start. Just give it a taste. And it's beautiful. It's well balanced. It's a nice, easy drink for the evenings as well. If you love the New York Sour, if you like something tangy, you're going to love this one. So cheers to our first cocktail, the new Bombay Sour. I'm going to go right ahead and sip on this and check it out. And you can really, in the first whiff of the aroma, the jamun wine comes through, the berry notes, the tropical fruits, along with a nice tart finish. And it's quite refreshing. In fact, this would work for the day as well. But yeah, it's a beautiful take on the New York Sour. And here's your first cocktail. If you have any questions, please go right ahead and ask me before we shift to the next cocktail. But this is something what it looks like. Cheers.
Cheers, cheers.
Lovely. As you see, I've also added a nice big block of ice because the bigger the ice cube, the slower your drink is going to melt, the slower the ice cube melts. If it's crystal clear, it melts even slower, it keeps your drink cold for longer. You don't want your drink too diluted. You want just the right amount of dilution, the water, ice water that gets released, which makes your drink really cold, balances it out, opens up the flavors of the spirit or of the wine. And that's the kind of flavor that we're trying to achieve here. So here we go. I keep this on the side. The ice block is not going to melt too soon, so I don't have to worry, and I'm going to sip on this a little later. And let's jump into the next cocktail as well. Yeah, and we have some contact ball juggling as well that I would like to show you, which is something I do outside the bar. It's a part of the juggling arts. It's all about balance. So in fact, very similar to like balance in mixology. Mixology is just about balance. It's about balancing various different ingredients together balancing the flavors together, and yeah, just achieving the kind of flavor profile that you like. So if you like something sweet or you like something sour, something spicy, play around as per your preference. But you want a little bit of the other flavors to be there to enhance that particular flavor. Like if there is no sweetener, your sour might just stand out too much. So you want a little bit of everything, a nice blend to kind of bring out the flavors even more. All right, so that's a little bit about mixology. Experiment with ingredients that you find at home and ingredients that your favorites, like what you like to drink or like a favorite fruit you like to eat, and then try and incorporate that into your cocktail. All right, so we're going to go ahead with the next drink, which is in fact with ingredients that you can find easily at your home as well. I've used hibiscus flower, which is like, it's also known as a shoe flower. It's a beautiful flower which gives out this bright red color and a nice darkness, a beautiful aroma as well. And I think it goes fantastically with the jamun wine. I'm going to play around. I've also added a tea bag of green tea in there. So it's a green tea and hibiscus mix, which I've brewed for a couple of minutes and let it cool down. So the flavor of the flowers have really come through, because the longer you let it steep, it's going to get even stronger in flavor. And we're going to mix that up just directly in a wine glass. So red wine glass, and with our Resvera jamun wine. I'm going to use the other Resvera for that. And we're going to take a large shot, 2 large shots of Resvera. So that's about 120 ml of jamun wine. Just a touch more. So 120 ml to 130 ml of jamun wine that we're going to mix up with the hibiscus green tea. And we're going to take, again, just a little more than a large shot. So if you've got 2 large shots of wine in there, we're going to put about 1.5 large shot of hibiscus tea, which would mean about 90 ml of hibiscus green tea. And you want to let it cool down because you don't want it too warm. It's going to warm up your drink. So brew it a couple of hours prior and wait for it to cool. And the color profile also matches quite well with the Resvera wine. And I'm just going to give that a stir, see if the balance is okay before I add the ice block. It's tarty, it's tangy. I like my drinks less sweet, but if you prefer a hint of sweetness, you can also add just a touch of honey into it. In fact, let's try with just adding like half a bar spoon of honey in there. And you can just stir it up. And you could add a whole bar spoon or 1.5 bar spoons if you like it on the sweeter side. I usually prefer it less sweet, but just a touch of sweetener to bring out the flavors even more. And that's what sugar does. Sometimes salt does that as well. It just brings out the flavors. It makes them pop a little bit. So just a touch of honey to make the flavors pop. Oh, that's delicious. It's still very tart, and that's how I like it. Again, 1 block of ice cube. And I just give it a little stir once more to chill the drink together. Now, just like a sangria, you can garnish this with cut fruits of your choice. You can put in some fresh berries, that would go really well, some cut apples. But I'm going to be using just a dehydrated orange slice. Otherwise, you can use a fresh orange and just put in a fresh orange slice, or the zest of the orange, the peel of the orange, which has so much aroma as well. So just a touch of an orange flavor is what we want to get there. And to garnish the drink, just place an orange slice right on top. And there you have it, our own version of the sangria, the hibiscus sangria. It's not really a sangria, but just inspired from it. And we are substituting fruits with flowers, yeah. And cheers to Resvera's hibiscus sangria. And I hope you try this one out. Yeah, I'm going to taste it now. I'm going to sip on this like later today evening. It's delicious. If you have any questions, I would love to answer them as well. I'm just going to place this in front. And yeah, over to you. And I hope you try these drinks out. Let me know how you like them as well. You can tag us when you do try them. It'll be super.
They look so delicious. I'm controlling myself from drooling, and I was there. I so wish I could taste them. But yes, we have some questions, and it's from Komal Samani, who is the founder of Resvera. And she's coming online right now.
Okay, fantastic. Would love to answer it.
Hi, good evening, Ami. Thank you so much. Like, it has been fantastic.
Yay.
So good to see your passion for this. It floats, you can see it's so relevant, so passionate about your profile, yeah. So Ami, we would like to know, why did you choose flair bartending?
Oh, it's a common answer that it chose me. I didn't choose it, but actually that's how it kind of happened. Flair attracted me. The finesse of flair, the loudness of it. It pulled me. It got me curious, and I just sort of out of curiosity played around with it. Asked a flair bartender, "Hey, can I learn some moves and can you teach me something?" I already knew about 2-3 simple steps from this movie I'd learned in cocktails. So I kind of showed off to what I knew already, and I got a job as an assistant bartender and pretty much learned on the job before work, after work. And I loved the job. It was flair which pulled me in. But also mixology attracted me a lot about the profession and playing around with these different flavors, ingredients, understanding balance in food and liquids. It was quite exciting and quite adventurous in its own way. And as an 18-year-old, I think just getting behind the bar and learning about alcohol was so fascinating. And I think that's how it kind of started off as a hobby. It became a profession at some point. I just really don't know when. But yeah, flair is what pulled me in. In fact, let me show you some of the moves that I'd seen in this movie called Cocktails. Tom Cruise is flipping around some bottles. It was really basic flair back then in the 80s, I think, when the movie was made. But now it's gone to a whole other level, and it's still very challenging, very exciting, and that's what still kept me in the profession, I feel, to a large extent, along with mixology. I love them both quite equally. But these were the 3 moves: this hand spin, a back toss, and tossing it from the back to the side were my first 3 steps, which I learned as a 13-year-old from a movie. And when I met a bartender, I showed this to him, and yeah, I got a job that nailed it for me. So kind of just flowed after that.
Amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
So also we'd like to know, how is it to be into a male dominated industry?
It is what it is, I suppose. I mean, there's no 2 ways about it until it doesn't become so dominated, until we get someday at some point where it's going to be balanced. It is what it is. And I think initially I didn't even understand, or I didn't recognize how it feels to be in a male dominated industry and how it might feel different if it were not male dominated. And only after, in the last few years or so, when I've seen so many women in the industry, there's so many now, still not as many as you can see, like a 50% or a 40%, but there are quite a few who are doing some amazing things in different areas, in wines and spirits, and in behind the bar, and mixology, in other areas as well. And it's only then when I think I realized that it's so nice and comfortable when it's not male dominated. It just feels different. It's not, there are not so many bumps. It's more, people understand you better. It's less to explain. It's a simpler journey. It's an easier journey, which helps one focus on their work more than the small unnecessary challenges, which are just gender bias or various other stereotypes which come into play as a woman in any industry. I think if it's you're amongst the few over there. So it took me a while to kind of understand that, I suppose. But yeah, patriarchy, misogyny, how it really works is it's a little tricky. You don't really understand it. You don't recognize it rather until you see otherwise, So it took me a while, I think, to understand that for myself. But I think the fact that there were so few women made it more interesting for me to enter the space. And I would do it even more, maybe because of that. So yeah, that's how it went for me.
Much appreciated.
Hey, thank you.
So last but not least, like,
Yeah.
what do you think about making cocktails with Resvera? Like, what's your take on it?
I love coming up playing with ingredients which I haven't played with too much. So this was the first time I'm experimenting with jamun wine, and I love jamun as a fruit as well. It's a delicious fruit, and I love tart fruits. I love fruits which have tanginess, that sourness in it, and I think that comes through a little bit in the wine also. So I do prefer it. It's not so dry. It's not so sweet either. It's got this tartness to it. It's great to play around with so many variations of cocktails. You can just go with a standard sangria recipe also and just try that out. Just infuse a whole bunch of fruits in there and leave it in the refrigerator for a couple of hours, and it's a delicious drink that you get at the end of it. Or add a splash of apple juice also. It works really well. It complements the flavors quite easy. It gives a hint of sweetness to it. I think hibiscus works really nice. So that's a ingredient to try around and play around it. I think it combines with jamun quite nice. It's been fun experimenting, and I've had tried a few different cocktails over the last few days with it. Yeah, these are my favorite two, which I'm kind of showing it to you. And yeah, it's something to try out. But there's so many other cocktail options that are possible that maybe I have not tried even. Yeah.
Thank you, Ami. Like,
I
Natasha.
love wine, by the way. Genuinely love it. Like I'll sip on this.
Okay.
Like a wine. I would love to go for this one. Yeah. More than
Thank you so much, Ami. Like, it's crafted by one of the best winemakers in world. So we had international winemakers coming all the way from Canada to craft this wine. We had a number of experimented, those so the Canadian winemaker did all justice to our wine. They understood, and even they were passionate to create wine out of fruit, that has never been crafted, like jamun. It's so delicate to handle, just a shelf life of 15 days. So it was so difficult, but they wanted to accept that as a challenge, and they have done a fantastic job. And we are getting very good response from market, because yeah.
Yeah, and it's amazing to play with ingredients. I think that are locally available, which are what our specialty is. I mean, if our weather pertains towards these fruits better than, like, say, grapes, for example, it doesn't have to be that grapes are the only fruit that makes a wine, that makes a fermented beverage. You can wines from so many other ingredients, and jamun is one such fruit. It works. Yeah.
The way, Pinot Noir, it is so rare and it is so difficult to craft wine out of this, because it is very rarely available, species of grape. Same is with jamun, shelf life is so small, 15 days, and the way you have to store it and the way you have to process it, it really takes a lot of hard work, a lot of efforts, and no mistakes are allowed while doing that. But it's our passion, to bring wine out of a fruit which is extremely nutritious, it's jamun is god of fruits, and high in nutritional value, and we wanted to bring to our people something that is high on nutrition, where we promote, alcohol is injurious to health. We wanted to bring something that is good for health, and we wanted to challenge the status quo, and that is how we came up with this idea.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think it has high antioxidants, so it's very good for multiple different. Yeah, like you said, it's amazing. Yeah.
Anti-aging agents, Resvera the name is derived from resveratrols, and jamun possesses a lot of portion of resveratrols. So the name Resvera is derived out of it, it is anti-aging agents.
Yeah, that's
antioxidants. Yeah.
That's cool. Wow, nice one.
So thank you so much, Ami. Natasha, over to you. And
yes,
pleasure. Yeah.
So, Ami, I actually have a question for you. It's from one of my colleagues who's sitting right here, and they were pinching me about it. So, what is the laziest drink? If for somebody who's super lazy and they just had to put something to, what would be the laziest drink that you would suggest?
Simplest is like the sangria recipe is such a lazy one. You just put whatever fruits are available. Ideally, it's apples and oranges have been one of the picks. But just whatever fruits are there in your fridge or your favorite fruits, get some from the market and just chop them up, dunk them in the wine, let it soak in there for a couple of hours, 2-3 hours. and the fruits are going to absorb that wine, and it's going to leave out its flavor as well. And that's one of the simplest, I think, recipes. But again, I think the green tea, hibiscus tea is so simple. I just had to brew it, like I just had to add hot water to some hibiscus flowers and a tea bag, and I left it there for an hour. It's cooled down, and I'm using it. I'm just mixing it up with the wine. It's that simple. So I think this recipe is a really simple one. And even if you don't have hibiscus flowers, maybe it's not so common in every home, but green tea can be played around with to add that tang element with the touch of honey. You could add lime juice instead of the hibiscus flowers. You could add kokum as well. I think kokum would complement it really well. Yeah, I think these are some flavors that one can experiment with, see what's available in your fridge, in your kitchens. Use a balance of a sweet and sour and just mix it with the wine. Just a touch of it with the wine, and that's it. It just like to bring out the flavors more. Otherwise, just sip on it just the way it is. I think it's a lovely wine just to sip on. You don't really need any ingredients for it, and you don't even need to mix it up. But yeah, if you're in the mood for a cocktail, then these are some of the simple options I think I would suggest.
Great. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Ami, would you like to show off some of your juggling skills?
Yes.
I have a lot of requests for that.
Totally, absolutely. So if we can have some music, it goes really well with the music. It's like a dance in itself. So if I could request you for a song of your choice. And yeah, here is some contact ball juggling, which is a part of the juggling arts. It's something I do outside the bar, but then again, it's all about balancing an object in different points of the body, just like we're balancing the multiple different ingredients in our cocktail. And I'll show you a little bit of flair bartending as well with that. So yeah, if there's a song, it would be fantastic to go with.
I'm not sure if you can hear it.
Oh yeah, I can. I think I can. Yeah. Lovely.
She gives and go in the cupboard and you'll see. She can go like a more than believe. Oh, I love you more than appreciate it. You see, you can reciprocate. I got the latest stationery. Miss touching the glaze. Just protect her and keep her safe. Baby, worship my hips and waist. So fulfilling with grace, I touch your soul when you hear me say, boy, let me be your woman. Let me be your woman. Woman. I can be your woman. Woman. Let me be your woman. Woman. I can be your woman. Lady, I'm a woman, I'm a motherfucker, but they got a problem. Put some babies in your life and take away the drama. Put the paper in a picture like a diorama. Gotta face a lot of people that are opposite. Cause the world told me we ain't got that common sense. Gotta prove it to myself that I'm on top of shit. And you would never know a God without a goddess is honest. Fucking honest, kidding, I could be on everything. I mean, I could be the leader, head of all the states. I could smile and jiggle it till the pockets empty. I could be the CEO, just like a Robin Fenton. And I'ma be there for you cause you on my team, girl. Don't ever think you ahead of these niggas' dream, girl. They wanna put us against each other when we succeed. And for no reason, they wanna see us end up like we were Gina or Mean Girl. Princess or Queen, tomboy or king. You for the lot you've never seen. Mother Earth, Mother Mary, rise to the top. Divine feminine, I'm feminine. Let me be your woman. I can be your woman. Let me be your woman. I can be your woman.
Yeah, there was a little bit of contact ball juggling, which is just juggling an object while maintaining contact with it. Thank you for that response. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's something I got into after flair bartending. But let me show you a little bit of flair bartending as well. It's all about flairing or adding flair to bartending using objects that you find behind the bar, such as a shaker. It could be your cocktail glass, it could be just a bottle and a shaker, and doing these different tricks. Which we find behind the bar, any object. I usually use the bottle and the shaker as one of the most common objects that bartenders play with, but it's not restricted to that. And it could just be taking an orange and doing some contact ball juggling, and then slicing it up and dropping it into your drink, just flipping your peeler a little bit, and then going for it, twirling of the bar spoon, and then going for a stir. So small elements like that, it's just about adding flair to any object that we lift up and pick up and utilize as the bar, how we pick it up as well, all these little details. That's a little bit of flair bartending, and they're both very awesome and my favorite things about the profession. So yeah, that's a little bit of contact ball juggling and flair.
Amazing, amazing. That was fabulous. So I'm going to open it to the audience right now. If anybody has any questions,
Absolutely.
feel free and go ahead and type it in the chat, and I'll try to read it out loud. If anybody has any questions.
Yes, please go ahead, ask me about the bar, about cocktails, about flair, about my personal life. Nah, I'm just joking, but anything you want about my profession, or about what an ingredient that you have and you want to incorporate it into a cocktail, maybe I can just throw in a recipe. Yeah, go ahead, ask away. Where's questions?
There is appreciation. There
Ah, sweet. Thank you so much.
are than questions. We have appreciations. Our crowd is more.
Yeah. Well, try these cocktails out. I think then some questions might pop. Oh, what can I do with this ingredient? What can I do with that? And like the whole journey of mixology might start off for y'all. It's just about trying one or two cocktails, and then it pulls you in, trust me. So, but go ahead, experiment, try a classic cocktail or recipe that's already established, that people already like, and maybe change the sweetener, try that little bit simple way of experimenting. Just skip out the sugar. I find sugar quite boring, and try these different flavors of sweeteners, which might just be healthier as well and have so much flavor. They have so much flavor of their own, like what honey brings. Each honey might be different, and what jaggery brings. And again, jaggery, palm jaggery, cane jaggery, like date syrup. There are so many options and things to play with. So go ahead, experiment. The questions will keep popping after that. Yeah.
So we have a question.
Yeah.
Is it okay to add water or ice to wine? Why not cool it from outside?
If you're having wine just the way it is and you're not mixing it up with the cocktail, you're not adding other flavors, you probably don't want to dilute it. But I do feel if in case your wine is not cold, and sometimes if you've not been able to refrigerate it and you are opening the bottle anyways, I don't mind a cube or two to kind of give it that temperature which I want. Because temperature is really important to me. So I don't mind that little hint of dilution, which is not ideal for the wine, but I want the temperature to be just right. So if you don't get time to put in the refrigerator and if you add a cube of ice, it's okay, I think. Then again, that's not the right way of doing it. And ideally, you want to refrigerate, remember, like 20 minutes, 30 minutes prior, and pop the bottle into the refrigerator. That's if you're in room temperatures like Bombay or India, where it's going to be warm, it's tropical, it's not the winter. So room temperature is not that cold, and it's rather warm, and I like my wine a little chilled. So yeah, that's something I would recommend. But if you're playing around with cocktails like these and you're adding other flavors, then it's absolutely fine. And if you have a big block of ice, like if you see we started the cocktail at the starting of the drink and the block is quite still there, it's not melted much, it's just a little bit, then it's okay because it's quite a big block and it's not going to dilute your drink too much, but it's going to make it really cold. So yeah, that's something you can try out. And you get these big molds, ice molds as well, if you want to make blocks of ice at home easily. Just purchase a pack of like a big ice mold or freeze it up into a container like this, and you'll have a big chunk of ice, then you can break it into smaller big chunks. So that's some way of trying it in your own freezer at home. Yeah.
We have another question from Gaurav. He wants to
Sure.
know what's the proportion of kokum with jamun wine for a good cocktail.
Yeah. So it depends on kokum. If you're using, you also like in the market you get kokum, like a sharbat, which is like a syrup. So it's quite sweet. So you just want to put a touch of that, like 2 bar spoons, 3 bar spoons, to give it the flavor. Like that's 10 to 15 ml. And otherwise, if you're using the kokum juice, sometimes that you get, which might also have some salts and certain other flavorings like jeera or cumin and other spices, it'll work really well. But then maybe for that you want to put about 30 ml and also add a hint of some sweetener to it if you want, just to balance it a little bit. So it depends on what kokum you use. Just put a touch of it, taste it, see if you want to add more. So always add a little less, taste your cocktails, and then add a touch more and see, okay, is this the right balance that I want? Because if you put too much of an ingredient, then it's tough to kind of take it out and balance the drink afterwards. But if you put too little, it's not a problem. So yeah, depending on what kind of kokum you're using. If you're using fresh kokum and making your own blend or puree and juice, again, then you can just go with like a 30 to 40 ml proportion, and with 1 glass of wine, like 120 to 150 ml of jamun wine. And yeah, just play around with that. That should mix it up. If you think it's too tart, add a touch of a sweetener. And if you're putting syrup, add a touch of maybe a touch of lime if required. If you don't like it too sweet, yeah, that's one way of playing around.
Another question is from Shibarsit. He's saying, out of your experience of dealing with people at the bar,
Yes.
what would you suggest Resvera to reach masses in quick span of time? I think how would you say how would you suggest Resvera? I mean, in what form?
In cocktails, I think cocktails have made a particular brand or a particular type of spirit really popular as well. That's one approach of going with. If there's a particular cocktail that gets really popular, the spirit that's used in that cocktail also gets really popular. For example, I think Mojito has been one of the most popular cocktails that thus the rum consumption of rum increased. Or gin and tonics is something that's gotten very popular lately, and thus gin and tonics have come up. There's a whole market for that right now. Similarly, wines, I think it's very new, and sometimes the novelty of having something that's not done so much is very cool in itself, and many bars want something which is not available everywhere. Not everyone is doing it. It's not a cocktail everyone's heard of. So that's the unique way I think one could promote the Resvera jamun wine specifically, is to highlight the uniqueness of it, to highlight how one can experiment and come up with different cocktails with it, and or use it in their classic cocktails like the New York Sour, which is a classic cocktail, but twisting it around with, instead of your red wine made from grapes, you're using like a rosé red wine made from jamuns instead. And yeah, it has its own flavor which it brings to the cocktail. So that's one way of approaching it, I think, and getting it out to the masses to kind of reach out to them. But otherwise, just the way it is, like just a glass of jamun wine just to sip on in a nice brunch or a nice day drink. Yeah, anytime, in fact, not just cocktails.
I have another question from Moses, who's sitting right here with me. He wants to know, if somebody was a first timer, somebody who's drinking cocktails for the first time, what would be the go-to drink to suggest to them so that they get addicted and never leave it?
I think pick a flavor that you like personally. There's no like one particular, this cocktail everybody's going to love. But if you love something refreshing, you might like something similar to the mojito, if not the mojito. You know, if you might love the gin and tonics as well, or something fizzy if you like something on the refreshing side. If you want something for a brunch, wine-based cocktails, sparkling wine-based cocktails, those work really well. So it really depends on what mood you're kind of in, what time of the day are you drinking it. But what I would also recommend is make your cocktails milder. If you're not fond of the flavor of alcohol, or usually someone who's starting off with drinking, make it on the milder side, so that more than the cocktail, it's all these variety of flavors that's in the drink. More than the alcohol, it's the flavors that is what you like about the cocktail. So don't keep it too strong, like say the Negroni, the old fashioned. These are strong cocktails which are more alcohol based than other ingredients and mixers. And where you have drinks like the mojito, even the tiki cocktails, which have a lot of fresh fruit ingredients in it, sangrias, they are much more on the milder side. Like this hibiscus, the hibiscus sangria has half wine and half, or a little less than half hibiscus brew. And it's toning down the alcohol content in a way. And that might just be a great way to start off with some light, easy drink. You have two also, it's not going to hit you so much. So something like that to start off with, and rather than the new Bombay Sour, which would be a little more on the stronger side. So kind of like picking from, just these cocktails is one way of approaching it. Yeah.
Another question is from Neha. She's asking if somebody had to start up their career as a mixologist, where would they start? Where should they start?
So ideal would be to do a course with the bartending school, or even hotel management colleges teach bartending as a part of the curriculum. They teach various other aspects of hospitality as well. But the bar is one key factor. It's almost as important as food. And I think now we're giving it that kind of importance as much as food is getting, or has rather. Food is very important, but so are beverages. And that's a great way to start, is to do a hotel management course, or just take a course in any bartending school near you. So there are multiple different cities, all the metros around India have some bartending school or the other. There are some others also in smaller towns, and it's become a whole big market. So you have many options to choose from. Pick a school that you think works for you, that's convenient, that works in the budget, the timing, all these factors come into play. All of the schools will have some great teachers, and eventually it's all about learning on the job, before work, after work, by yourself, just watching videos. The internet has so much content. Even before you do the course, you can start experimenting at home, trying a few recipes out for yourself. Just understanding what is wine, how is it made, what are the different spirits, what's the difference between a wine and a spirit, why is a gin, a whiskey, scotch, all these terminologies. Just get an idea of it, and there's so much information to get from the internet, and some really cool videos that have simplified the entire process of learning very easy to access and to understand. So that's how I'd suggest: watch a bunch of videos, Google a little bit, or just any web search, and experiment. Learn for yourself, try it out. It just sticks to the memory. Oh, I tried this drink, it tasted like that. Even if it doesn't work out and the drink doesn't taste that great, it teaches you something. It teaches you that this and this combination does not work together, or you need to change the proportion a little, and you kind of learn as you go. If you're planning it professionally, start working somewhere, maybe under a good bartender that you want to learn from, and yeah, everything's just going to flow after that. Opportunities will come, go for it. Competitions might happen, go for it. Like take part in these competitions, challenge yourself with these little challenges. They don't really matter at the end of it, because all talent is awesome and no one's really judging who is the best. But in that moment, to put yourself out there to be judged, I think is makes you one nervous, and it's a nice state to go through, so that you feel more confident just sometime later when you're behind the bar, no one's judging you. In that moment, you feel better about yourself and more confident. So go for it, challenge yourself in these various ways, and the learning never stops. I'm still learning things. So yeah, it's 18 years, but it doesn't stop.
We have another question from Deepak. He says that healthy indulgence is the USP of Resvera. From a bartender's perspective, how do you think Resvera would work out there in the market?
It could be like, there are so many cocktails. I think some cocktails, not so many, but some cocktails where they're trying to incorporate ingredients which have a particular medicinal purpose, or a particular therapeutic purpose rather. For example, I use ginger a lot, but it's also when somebody says that they have a sore throat and they don't want ice, I recommend them something warm with ginger, with turmeric, with spices like that, which are very soothing for the throat. Yeah, if they want something like chamomile, it helps induce sleep, or there are certain ingredients which serve a purpose. So perhaps with that kind of knowledge to kind of incorporate a cocktail or have ingredients which help out with a specific cause, and then put it together. Although I feel like it's again alcohol, if it's not consumed in the right proportion, it might not just be you can't really connect it with health, but nonetheless, it's about what we choose to drink. The quality of alcohol that we choose to drink also really matters and impacts our health accordingly. And the amount of it. It's not about binge drinking. It's not about drinking so much that we don't enjoy the night or the day. It's not something we remember the next day. Things like that. It's too much. And if it's in the right proportion, it's just sipping on 1 or 2 cocktails and enjoying it. Then go for quality ingredients, go for quality spirits, quality wines, and yeah, you're gonna have a good experience with it as well. Health-wise, I don't know, because I'm not like medically sound to give you that advice. But yeah, I could research a little more on that, and maybe you all could research also a little before trying it out. Yeah.
We have a question from Suresh.
Yeah.
When will be a good time to have a cocktail? Will it be in the afternoon or the evening? To get a better taste or aroma.
Oh, interesting. I haven't really thought about it from a taste or aroma perspective, but I think I do prefer drinking in the day somehow, just so that I don't have a late night. I can pace it out. I can still go to bed early. Also, as a bartender, sometimes I'm working in the nights. My free time might be the next day in the day. So I do prefer having a cocktail just after lunch, just before lunch. I mean, that kind of a time personally, but it has nothing to do with, I think, the flavor and the aroma per se. It's any time is okay for a cocktail. Like, I think it's when you're in the mood, when you feel good, you've had a good day, your body feels good enough to like consume some alcohol, and maybe you're socializing with some good company, and you want to have a drink. Yeah, that's when it's a good time for a cocktail.
We have a question from our very own Piyush Somani. He wants to know, will a ginger flavored gluten free beer be liked by the people, or will they feel like more like a medicine?
No, if you get the balance right, it won't be too medicinal. So if it's just a hint out there, it's like a ginger ale, but imagine a ginger ale, but not a ginger ale, it's a ginger beer, like it's a beer ale. Like, I don't know, I've played around with beer cocktails quite a bit, and I really like playing around with beer a lot. And I think ginger works great with beer too. Again, with ginger, just find that combination of a sweet and sour, or not even sour, just a sweet, because ginger itself has that punch, that kick, which balances the sweetness. So you want something to balance the sweetness, and ginger can do that. So just ginger and honey, maybe a touch of lime, that's optional, just a touch, and top it up with beer, and that would be fantastic. It's a great cocktail to try out. Similarly, so many flavors, like a tartness instead of the lime coming in, making it a sour beer. So sour beers are something I personally love a lot, but I rarely find them, and many of the craft beers also do. I don't see sour beers as a popular option, but if I create my own sour beer cocktail, I love it. I've played around with kokum, with hibiscus as well, grapefruit and lime, creating my own version of a sour beer, and it's beautiful. Like, could try that with Resvera also, like mix up the jamun wine and beer. I haven't tried it yet. Maybe that's the next thing I'll try. Yeah.
So the last question, Ami,
Yeah.
which is your go-to drink?
Oh, I do like craft beers, especially if it's like a nice sour beer or an IPA. I do like gin and tonics, and I like certain wines as well. Depending on, like, especially for the day, if I'm having a brunch, I would love a wine that would go with it. So a tart wine like this is something I do enjoy more than a sweeter wine. And yeah, these are my 3 options of like go-to drinks: a beer, a good beer, a gin and tonic, or a nice tart wine.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ami. I think we'll end it here. It was great having you. And I'm sure everyone who's attended would go home and I think they're going to try this drink firsthand. And
Yes.
maybe over the weekends a little bit more and get a little tipsy with Resvera. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me once again. And cheers to Resvera.
Cheers.
Thank
And thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.